But Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1, it says, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. And he shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed, and their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all of my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious." And really that last phrase is what drew me to this and what spurred me on to include this in our study. And what a beautiful statement. His rest shall be glorious. You know, the beginning of Isaiah talks about the birth of Christ. You know, some of the more powerful prophecies about Christ come from the first, 10, 12 chapters here in Isaiah. There's talk of this one who will come, who will be born. His name shall be Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God. This is language that trips up people. We have the Jehovah's Witnesses, for example. They would say, okay, yeah, he's God, sort of. And they would never be willing to identify Christ as the mighty God. And yet, Isaiah says he's the mighty God. And it talks about his birth, talks about how he will be given. These are passages that we know from Christmas time, right? We associate the beginning of Isaiah with Christmas time. And this is plainly declaring the Messiah coming in his birth. Now, there's some other things that are talked about in here, which of course we're going to think about end times. We're going to think of eschatology. We read some of what we read in this passage. But this is hitched to his birth. That he is going to come. He's going to come up out of the ground. He's going to rise up. He's going to spring up out of Jesse, right? Out of the line of Jesse. This is where he's going to be born from. It's talking about the birth of Christ. But we could go through and we could walk through the book of Isaiah, and the book of Isaiah has a lot of stuff we with the boys, we studied through the book of Isaiah, I don't know, would it have been last year, maybe the year before, and they took some good quality naps while I was preaching at them in the evenings, and we went through the book of Isaiah, and the book of Isaiah has so much of the gospel in it. It presents the gospel over and over in many different ways. It just says, look, God is the one who redeems. God is above all. He's the one who restores, he redeems, he's your savior. And as we come towards the end of Isaiah, we begin to see now declaration of the Messiah coming, but this time not at his birth, but there's discussion of his work, his death. And again, we see what seems to be eschatology brought back in right at the end of the book of Isaiah. But let's look through some of how Isaiah speaks of the Messiah coming. Isaiah 49. Isaiah chapter 49 and verse 6. And we could just walk chapter by chapter through all of Isaiah. Eventually, I put several verses down, and I said, well, that's probably enough. I better quit just putting more verses in, because, man, we can just go through these verses one after another, and what it speaks of. But we see again this plain declaration of the coming Messiah as Redeemer and as sacrifice. Isaiah 49. Here is this call, "Listen, O isles, unto me," in verse 1, "and hearken, ye people from afar. So when it uses the language of the isles, is it speaking specifically of like certain islands? No, it's just revealed that no, this means people from a long ways away. Right? If you come to the ocean and you look and someone says, anyone on any of the islands out there, they're talking about anybody no matter how far they are. And this is exactly what God is saying here in Isaiah 49. Listen, O isles, unto me, and hearken, ye people from afar. But down in verse 6, well, let's look at verse 5. Now saith the Lord, saith Yahweh, that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. All right, let's pause there. So here is this person who is formed as the servant of the Lord to redeem Israel, to redeem Jacob. Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my God shall be my strength. So here's this servant whose strength is God. Here is this servant who is to redeem, who is to deliver Israel, to deliver Jacob. Now, oftentimes in Isaiah 52, 53, the argument from a Jewish person would be, well, the one who suffers, and they're marred beyond any comprehension. This is Israel. Look at how much Israel has suffered over the years. And we've suffered on behalf of God. But here in Isaiah 49 is this revealing, okay, how can it be Israel if this one is raised in Israel to deliver Israel? Right? The specific purpose of this servant is to deliver Israel. But verse 6 then, it says, and he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob. Now what does it mean when it says light thing? Excuse me. When it declares this as a light thing, this means an easy thing. Something it takes just no effort. This is a light thing. Okay, so we read in verse 6, that puts it in context a little bit. It is a light thing. It's an easy thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel. Okay, that would be easy. That would be the light thing. That would be the simple thing. But then what does it say? I will also give thee, this servant who delivers Israel, who delivers Jacob, I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. To the people at the very end of the earth. Right? Does the earth have an end? Now, some people will literally look at this verse and say, well, clearly God is saying the earth has an edge, so that means it's flat, and you'll fall off once you reach the end. Okay? But again, with the isles, what was the language of the isles? It's speaking to the people, the farthest people you could possibly imagine. And so when it says to the end of the world, as far away as you possibly can imagine, keep on going forever. And that's where he is the salvation of God unto. He is the salvation as far as you can go. There's no end to where he is the salvation. And here, it's speaking of this servant. And he talks about, I will give thee a light for the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. When is salvation given? Right? When did God give salvation? It's given in Christ. So this servant is being declared as Jesus. And who is the servant that's raised up from Israel to redeem Israel? It's Jesus. So here's prophecy about Jesus coming as salvation, as the salvation of all. He's going to come to redeem Jacob, to redeem Israel. And God, it's so interesting that he says, hey, it's such a light thing. It's too easy. This would not glorify God enough. I think is sort of the indication. This would not be a thing that shows God's greatness enough if he were to just redeem Jacob. If he were just to redeem Israel. So you know what? He redeems all. And it's too small for God to just redeem the remnant, right? These preserved out of Israel, the true believers in Israel. So he will also give his servant as a light to the Gentiles, and the servant will be God's salvation to all the earth, to the very ends. Not just, again, as the language says in the middle of the verse, the preserved of Israel. Now Isaiah 51. Isaiah 51, verse 5. So we're seeing this servant who is the salvation of God. He's a light to the Gentiles as well as redeeming Jacob and Israel. Now Isaiah 51, verse 5. Verse 4, we could see, hey, here's this call to listen. Hearken unto me, O my nation. Okay? And verse 5, my righteousness is near. My salvation is gone forth, and my arms shall judge the people. The isles shall wait upon me, and on mine arm shall they trust. So God here, he declares the nearness of his righteousness and salvation, which is to come. He says there's a righteousness and a salvation that is to come, and it is close. Right? This is the type of language that the New Testament uses also. That says, look, Christ's return, it is close. It's near. And here in Isaiah, they had 700 years to wait. We've waited, 2,000 years now. But the point is, look, this is close to God. It's coming. Trust me. It's here. It's on the verge. And maybe on the verge doesn't always mean the same thing to us as it does to God. But God says, you can trust me. It is coming. It is near. And here is this prophecy through Isaiah, through the book of Isaiah here, that his righteousness, his salvation, it's on the way. It's gone forth. It's coming. It's so near. It's so close. And the isles, again, are referenced not as a particular place, but rather this sense of the distant lands. And I would even mention that this idea of waiting, where it says the isles shall wait upon me, this idea of waiting very much could land with our topic of rest. Resting. The idea of waiting and just trusting and waiting and residing and resting as we wait for God. And saying, look, God said it. He says it's near. I will wait. I'll just wait. And what does it say? And on mine arm shall they trust. Here's the idea of the arm of the Lord. The arms, it says, shall judge the people. But then at the end of the verse, and on mine arm shall they trust. Okay, so who do the people trust in? They trust in the arm of the Lord. Isaiah 52, next chapter. Now 52, now we get into these passages that we've studied before, that we know, and we're much more familiar with. But Isaiah 52, let's look at verse 7. Verse 7, tell me what this is describing. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good, that publisheth salvation, that saith unto Zion, thy God reigneth. This is the gospel, the good news of peace, the good news of salvation. Here's this declaration of peace and salvation and this good news that is brought, these good tidings of good. And of course, this is referenced even in, again, we talked about it, the Christmas story. Where, hey, I bring you good tidings of great joy to all people. Okay, here comes the gospel. Here comes the thing that you've been waiting for, that the Old Testament saints were looking forward to and just waiting. Here comes the thing now that has been promised. And this good tidings, these good things. Verse 9, break forth into joy, sing together, ye waste places of Jerusalem, for the Lord hath comforted his people. He hath redeemed Jerusalem. Here's this language of redemption. Verse 10, the Lord hath made bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations. And all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. So the salvation of our God, the arm of the Lord is bared before all nations. So what is this saying? This is a promise. It's saying Christ is coming. He's going to be bared. He's going to be made plain before the eyes of all nations. And all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. I got just this tickle, like right there. And it won't go away. So I'll probably continue to do little coughs. I apologize. And so here God is promising this Redeemer, this one who comes to redeem, the one who brings salvation. His salvation is going to be made known to everyone. His arm, and I've mentioned this, but you're seeing some of the verses that prove it, that the arm of the Lord is a way of referring to Christ here, particularly towards the end of Isaiah. And we're seeing that in these verses. Verse 14, these are verses that we're very, very familiar with. Verse 14, it says, as many were astonished at thee. His visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. So shall he sprinkle many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at him. For that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. They had never thought of this. Thank you, Jackson. They had never thought of this. They had never considered it, and now they will see it. Now they will consider, and their mouths will be shut. And so Isaiah 52 here, it talks about proclaiming the gospel. Because at that time the Lord will have bared his holy arm and all see the salvation of God. And then in verses 14 and 15, Christ is revealed so clearly as the servant, the arm of the Lord. Man, I'm getting a cough drop too. All kinds of good stuff from the back row back there. Let's look at Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53, verse 1 and 2. Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? It's asking a question. Right? This is going to be demonstrated. We're going to see this in the New Testament. We'll come back to that in just a second. Verse 2, for he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. What does this sound like? This sounds like Isaiah chapter 11. Here's this reference, the one who springs up, the one who is born. He comes out of the line of Jesse. He shall grow up before him as a tender plant, as a root out of dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. And here in these verses, who is it that sees the arm of the Lord? And John chapter 12 verse 38. I don't know why I read that as a 4. The 8 is right there on the page. My brain just said 4 for no reason. 38 gives a quote of this. It quotes this passage. It says that those who had listened to the Old Testament were true believers already, hearing from the Father, and they are the ones to whom Christ is revealed. And now look at verse 10, and we can read this whole section. I'm sure you know it well. Verse 10, it says, yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. And we've studied through this passage. We've looked at some of this language. But here is this sacrificial language. This language of atoning suffering. I had someone who rejected the idea of Christ being a replacement atonement. I read Isaiah 53. What else does that mean? He suffered for us. The chastisement of my peace was upon him. By his stripes we are healed. But here is this language of atonement. And Christ is the offering for sin. And yet, in verse 10, it says that he shall prolong his days. Even though he is killed, he is cut off, he suffers, he dies, his days will be prolonged. And we looked at that. We saw this. But we could keep talking through these chapters, further revealing who this character is. I think you guys are all on board. But who is this character? Who's the salvation? He's the arm. He's the righteousness. Jackson, who is it? It's Jesus Christ. Right? He is the arm of the Lord. He is the righteousness of the Lord. He is the salvation of the Lord. He is the Redeemer. He's called the servant, the arm of the Lord, the Lord's righteousness, the Lord's salvation. And this is Christ. It's Jesus our Lord. The Jesus who is God in flesh, suffering lamb, conquering lion, who is put to grief, bearing our sin and suffering for our peace. The tender root, as Isaiah 53, verse 2 says, springing up like this root out of dry ground. Okay? And so here is the salvation of the Lord being presented. Here is the one who is the salvation and the righteousness of the Lord. But now let's pause for just a second. We're going to go to Isaiah 56. Pause for just a second and remember about the Sabbath. Isaiah 31. And I made reference to it, but Isaiah 31 is one of these passages that has weirdness, if we can put it that way. Man, if we take it in this way, if we take it as, well, this just means like taking a nap on Saturday. It seems weird that if you don't take a nap properly on Saturday, God is going to condemn your soul. Now, if that's what God says, if that's what he is communicating and that's what he's pointing to, then amen and so be it. Okay? He is God, he's the creator, and I follow his rules. I will take some melatonin and lay down on Saturday, right? Okay? But let me just remind you of this language. Violating the sanctified rest, the Sabbath, incurred what we could very much read as language of eternal damnation. The rest, the Sabbath keeping, also is to be a perpetual sign forever. It's not supposed to end. Isaiah 31, verse 14, ye shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whoso doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. Now, we could take this and we could say, well, soul perhaps means both the spirit and the body combined, and it's just a kind of colloquial way of just saying the person in general will be separated and cut off from the people. Maybe. Okay, maybe. Okay, but boy, this sounds harsh, right? Verse 16 of Exodus 31, wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. But what does Isaiah 56 then say about Sabbath? About God's rest. Keeping in mind, it's eternal, and there's the sense of being cut off as a soul. If it's not held to, if the Sabbath is not latched onto. Isaiah 56, verse 1. Thus saith the Lord, keep ye judgment, and do justice, for my salvation is near to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. So again, hey, you better listen. Jesus is coming soon. I'm going to reveal the sacrificial Messiah so soon. You need to pay attention. You need to listen. And then verse 2. Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the Son of Man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil. Now, this, again, starts to feel a little strange. The mingling feels unusual. We see, again, the blessedness that I think we could say that this is the same blessedness that David described and that Paul talks about in Romans chapter 4, salvation, to whom I was talking to a Roman Catholic, and we're going long, so I apologize, but hopefully you guys are enjoying this. But I was speaking to a Roman Catholic, recently, and they'd been going. So this is, well, they're going back and forth with someone else, and I came in and I said, look, you're talking about salvation and works always being, going hand in hand with faith, and I agree with that. Works do go hand in hand with faith. If we believe who God is and what he has done and what he has said, then yeah, we will throw ourselves as a living sacrifice to God. But my question was, how does one become the blessed from Romans 4 that David described, and Paul says, to whom God will not impute or count towards or credit their sin? So in the Roman Catholic faith, who is the person that sin is never credited to their account? That answer is no one. Everyone has their sin credited to their account. And they either suffer for it in purgatory, or depending on the sin, they go to hell for it. It is immediately slapped against their account. And so, slight sidetrack there. But blessed is the man that doeth this. So it's speaking of salvation. It's speaking of Christ as the righteousness of God. And it says, you should listen, you should latch on to my salvation, my righteousness. And blessed is the man that doeth this, and the Son of Man that layeth hold on it. But what does it also attach? In the same talk of Christ as the salvation with the blessedness, it attaches the Sabbath. That keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil. Now, there's people then who would look at passages like this, some of the passages that we've looked, and I'm not going there, but would say, in case you're starting to get concerned, and say, see, you worship on Sunday, you're going to hell. You aren't keeping the Sabbath, therefore you cannot be saved. Say, see, it's attached to Christ as the salvation of God and the righteousness of God. It begins to feel weird. Boy, this doesn't seem to match up with how salvation is revealed and how it's explained more fully in the New Testament. We see Christ, who is the sacrifice for all. He's promised to bear the sin of and sprinkle many nations. He's the salvation of the Gentiles, because saving just the preserved of Israel is not enough for God. And we even see language saying that Christ is coming soon. He's near to come. But then it says, you better keep the Sabbath. If we were to have a guest speaker come, and they came on Sunday morning, and they said, Christ is the sacrifice. He came to redeem all to God. He's coming soon, so you better follow the Sabbath. We'd all start to think, well, I can ignore what this guy's saying. We think, I don't know where this guy came from, but man, this dude is terrible at understanding what Christ has done to the law. That's what we would think. But yet, in its essence, this is what God has declared through Isaiah. Let's go back to Isaiah 11, chapter 11. We'll kind of cap off with just verses 1 and 10. Isaiah 11:1. We're seeing this mingling. We're seeing this weirdness. Isaiah 11:1. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. Again, this is using the same description as we see in Isaiah 53, referring to Christ as a plant that's growing up out of the ground from a root. Christ is prophesied to come forth from Jesse, to come forth out of the line of David. But what does verse 10 say again? In that day, there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. You know, what we see here and why we are looking at this verse, it's not because of the verses just before. And here, yes, it seems to be attached to perhaps the coming millennial reign. But we're seeing rest. The idea of rest. And the idea of rest, it's attached to Christ. Rather than here in this verse, in verse 10, where it says, his rest shall be glorious, the rest is attached to Christ, to the person. It's not attached to the time. It's attached to the person. I think what Isaiah is saying, what he's communicating through this, inspired by God, is he is saying that the Messiah brings a rest. There is a rest associated with this ruler that comes out of David. And his rest, his Sabbath, is the most beautiful, the glorious rest. And so as we look at rest here for the first 2 weeks, what are we seeing? First, we see that Sabbath rest, it's a picture. It's instructive. It's teaching us. The Old Testament teaching of Sabbath it's a shadow. It's a type. It's something that points forward. The picture of what it's being pointed at continues to change. There's change in what it's pointing towards. We're going to continue to study this. But in Isaiah's time, there was a rest that was yet to be revealed fully, and a picture of a rest that was going to be taught later. And the rest of Christ is glorious.